Hi guys, Chris here from USP Motorsports. Today we're going to be taking this 2017 Golf R and we're going to be using it for a test mule for our V2 Spulen catch can. This particular catch can fits the Mark 7 GTI, the Mark 7 Golf R, and also the Gen 3 motor that are found in the 2013 and a half and up Jettas. So a lot of people ask, why did we go from the V1 catch can to the V2? So the V2 catch can, we saw a lot of room for improvement that we could make on the V1. So instead of staying stagnant and having a mediocre product, we wanted to have the best of the best. So some of the things we added on the V2, of course, what I just said, which is a lot of baffling, but we also include an OEM gasket now under the catch can PCV plate. And we also include actually a nice nifty drain line that can actually be routed down to the factory lower plastic paneling, so that you can actually, when you're doing your oil change, you can actually drain your catch can without having to remove the whole catch can. Super helpful, and I definitely, I can't say enough of how helpful that is, especially if you're at the track. It saves a lot of time. As far as the difficulty level of this installation, I would rate it on a scale from 1 to 5, probably about a 3. Use some basic hand tools, some T30, T25, 10 millimeter. The only thing that's probably not so basic, but could be basic, is a drill. I actually am going to use a 3/8 drill bit, or I possibly will use a step drill bit to make things a little bit easier. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start this installation. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to move the factory engine cover, set that off to the side. This will go ahead and expose the factory PCV plate, and we're going to use a set of pliers to get this clamp off here on the evap hose. And also 10 millimeter to remove these two coil packs right here. So we're going to go ahead and throw our trusty work tool magnet tray over here. These come in handy. Throw the nuts and bolts in there. Can't tell you how many times I've thrown nuts and bolts on the wiper tray and drive away with them sometimes. So like I said, 10 millimeters here. Now to get these coil packs off, it's a two-step with these 10 millimeters. Once you remove these ground wires off, you also have to use another deep socket to get that off, or open and wrench. You know, if you have an open and wrench, you can do it if you don't have a lot of tools you're working with, or a deep socket. So they're not threaded in too deep, so you know, even an open and wrench would do the job. Those pulled out. Now to get these coil packs off, best way to do it is push down, lift up on the tab, snap back, and you have to kind of do them all, or else they don't want to come out. So as you can see, that one popped out there. That one is out, but it still doesn't want to let it really come out unless you kind of do these as well. Now you don't have to remove these coil packs, but you do have to take the clips off. Okay, once you can slide that back in, get that out of the way, then you can go ahead and remove these coil packs, snake them out. That'll give you more access to this plate. Okay, set those off to the side. Now that exposes us a little more room to get to all the bolts, and these are actually T30s, so we're going to go ahead and grab that. And I want to say, I think there's 7 or 8 of them, so 1, 2, 3, 4, actually comes out. The other ones stay with the plate. 5, 6, 7. Now the bolts actually do stay with this plate. They kind of lock in, so no need to pull them out. You do need a set of pliers just to take this clip off here for your evap line. Just slide that over. Now to get that evap line off, you can use a flathead screwdriver. You can use a flathead screwdriver or a pick to kind of slide that out there, so you can just get in between it, kind of squeeze it out, or if you have a pick, you can get under that. Just be careful not to break the actual tab itself. So Okay, so we got that line off there. The next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna remove this top plastic part, actually, get under there with a screwdriver. And this actually connects to the intake line itself. So this will be, this will go ahead and push back. Oh, forgot one bolt back there. Okay, so once we get this lifted up, it actually, you can see these bolts kind of stay locked in there. They're not going to flop out, but you got to be careful nothing falls into the engine because you have your intake cam exposed and everything. Okay, so there's your actually PCV plate. This is going to be our next step to remove. So we're going to go ahead and put this off to the side. And you could, while you're working this area, throw a little rag up here. You just want to make sure nothing drops into the engine bay. All right, so now you got the PCV plate off. We're going to go ahead and remove this line that provides the suction to your catch can. So the best thing to do is it kind of rotates on this factory intake back here. Rotate it towards you as much as you can, almost against the diverter valve. I found the best tool to use is a little miniature pry bar. And make sure you pry against something that's metal. I'm going to pry against the turbo housing, so I know I'm not going to break that. Just be careful with the coolant lines around it. So I'm going to go ahead and get behind it, see if I can get this on the first try. Oh, got it. All right, so you can see it popped off there. And you can go ahead and snake that out of there. Just be careful not to bust anything up. And as you can see, it just pops off. It has an O-ring in there. I was actually prying against these little tabs here. That's how I got them facing, and I popped it off. So this can be a struggle a little bit, but like I said, a little miniature pry bar does help. And then once you get this off, you can go ahead and set this to the side. You're no longer going to use this anymore. So we'll go ahead and wipe off the, just make sure all the oil is clean off this surface here. Make sure there's no debris or anything like that. And then we'll go ahead and we'll bring our plate over here and start the installation of that. Went ahead and opened what comes in our catch cam plate assembly here. If you're doing this installation, you'll see there's a thing of Loctite here. This is only used if you are going to be using this as a boost tap as well. It comes with two different boost taps. One's for larger, something like a blow-off valve, and then the other one is actually a very small nipple made for a boost gauge. It does have 7 new Allen millimeter screws it comes with. Those are 4 millimeter to get those in. So the boost tap is located actually right here. If you were not using the boost tap, then you leave that plugged in. That does already come pre-sealed up and pressure tested. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and install the Spulen catch can plate. As you can see, it does come with an OEM gasket that is modified. It is cut in a couple of places, so we go ahead and modify that here. Also, all the stuff on top, the bolts, screws, the AN fittings, those are already pre-assembled here at USP, so no need to worry about that. So go ahead and when you're installing it, just make sure the gasket stays in place. You can put your fingers under there. It's not too hard to do, but just make sure it stays in place. And that way it's a correct seal. And you can tell when you put it on if it's sitting up at all, then you know that the gasket didn't sit exactly how it should. Okay, once you get it all lined up, then you can go ahead and throw your 4 millimeter Allen screws in there. So the best thing to do first, just go ahead and just get them started. Don't tighten them or anything just yet. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and take this vacuum line, put it on the factory PCV, and there's a little clip here. If you can see, you can actually still retain that factory clip, putting it over there, and then taking the tie wrapping it, and using a pair of snips. Cut the excess off. Okay, so once you got your catch can plate installed, you can go ahead and reverse the procedure of putting your coil packs back in. And you'll see you actually have a lot more room now to kind of get to your coil packs with the spooling plate in there. And just make sure you click them all back in because you took them out earlier. Give them all a double check. Go ahead and put your 10 millimeters back in. Just make sure you kind of hold the wires too when you're tightening this one, because sometimes those ground wires will like to spin on you if you don't. Okay. So once that's done, next thing you're going to do is you can actually start your line configuration of setting your lines to see where they need to go. And then from there, we're going to move on to actually installing the actual can in place. All right, so once we already installed the plate, we're going to go ahead and install the catch can, and also this is only pertaining to a Golf R car. The regular GTIs do not have this located here, so you can go ahead and skip this step. But if you have a Golf R, and especially if it's full like this one, you're going to have to either jack the car up to get under it, or you're going to have a big mess in your belly pan by just removing this, because all your washer fluid is going to spill out. So we actually put it on the lift. We're going to be going below and removing the cover. This is the washer reservoir kit that it comes with, the relocation kit, which puts a nice nifty cap up here that you can fill your washer fluid from, and it allows the catch can to go in this place. So let's go ahead and down. Let's pull the pan off, and then we can go ahead and remove this and get it drained. So we got 4 T25s under here for the splash panel we're going to take off. This is also the same splash panel we're going to be putting a slight little drill hole through. That's going to be for our catch can drain line kit, which pretty nifty feature on our can. Actually, in the beginning of the video, I said it was 8. It's actually 3 on one side, 4 on the other. So we're going to go ahead and... Okay. So once that's exposed, we'll go to the top, remove the 110 millimeter. We'll put a bucket under here, and we'll catch all that excess washer fluid. All right, so now we got our bottom belly pan off. I have a bucket underneath. We're going to remove this 10 millimeter, set it off to the side here, and from there we're just going to pull this straight up. Now keep in mind, if it's full like this one is, it is going to go everywhere. So the bucket's going to catch, I'd say about 50% of it. So we'll just go ahead and pull straight up, and you can hear the water pouring good. And we'll try to pull it up and put my finger on it, and I caught what was left in it, and I'll go ahead and pour that into with the catch can. All right, so once we have the 60 millimeter motor mount bolt removed, I went ahead and I pre-installed the bracket with just a 10 millimeter open end wrench to get these on. And what we're gonna do is actually the bottom of the catch cans have a 6 millimeter Allen. So these catch cans do not come from us tightened, they come loose. So that's something you have to make sure. And the reason they come loose is it's totally adjustable by the end user of wherever the lines fall in that particular car. Since they're a little different on a Golf R or a regular GTI, you can actually get a straight shot at it, and then you can tighten it down. So what I recommend is we leave this a little bit loose as your first dry fit, and pretty much you just drop it in, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna align where the bolt would go, and you pretty much line up to where your where your lines are gonna be free. For instance, there's an AC line here. I know that typically the best way it installs is, it's a little tight with the AC line here, but you can get on one side of the AC line, one on the other. So I see it's roughly looks like a good area there. So I'm going to go ahead and just snug it up right there. It's a 6 millimeter Allen. If I could actually find it right here. So I'll go ahead and just tighten this 6 millimeter. And this is not going to be the last time I'll be in here. So just in case I need to make another adjustment, I'm not going to crank it down because we're going to come back in here as well to put the drain line in. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that fits there, and then I can go ahead and even drop the bolt in. And then what I'll do to make sure is I'll go ahead and install the lines, and if there is any small adjustments I have to make, I can make it at the time if I pull it back out and I put the drain line in. So once I get that in there, I'm just going to hand tighten it. As you can see, I still have a little play once that's in. I still have a little play in case the lines don't fall exactly where I want them to. Then you could take your washer fluid reservoir. This is the relocation kit. And we'll install this, and we're going to be using the factory 10mm bolt that we pulled off to reinstall this. So there is a hose clamp here that pretty much, this has a lip on it. You're going to go ahead and drop the hose clamp on there. Make sure you put the hose clamp in an easy way, orientation that you can actually tighten that hose clamp. So once we put it in there, then we can put it in its factory location, and it does have a little stopper on it, which only allows you to put it in pretty much in one direction, one way. All right, so now we're going to install the spool and intake adapter. As you can see, there is a slat here, and also in the back. This clip is going to position in this way, so this locks in there. So best way to do it is make sure you should have an O-ring in there. You can use a little silicone spray. That way it kind of slides on a little bit easier. And just make sure you have a nice snug fit, and then you can go ahead and put your C-clamp in there. And we can get a screwdriver and pry a little bit on that just to kind of help you out, because it does hurt just doing it with your hands. Okay. All right, once that's locked in there, that should be nice and snug. Then we can go ahead and start do a dry test fit on our line. So the long hose, the long AN fitting, the 90° is going to go on the intake side like so. And you can just go ahead and hand thread that on there. And the best way I like to route this is along the intake side. Actually, if you have an aftermarket intake in, it actually has a lot more room because they typically come over here, and it actually comes out even a nicer looking install with an aftermarket one. So you can go ahead and run the hose along here. You have your 45 on the other side. This is going to go to the outside of the catch can. On this side, the straight fitting is going to go onto the catch can plate. So we'll go ahead and thread that in there snug. And this is going to go to the inside fitting on the catch can. This is something we've added on the V2 kits. We have a quick disconnect under the catch can that allows for when you're changing your oil, instead of having to remove everything after the installation, if you're doing your oil change every 5 or 10,000 miles, you can actually go into the car as you're draining your oil. You can also move the oil drain bucket over on this side of the car, and you can sneak your hand under there and take the quick valve, and you can actually rotate it down. And therefore, if there is any sludge buildup or anything, which there is a nice nifty dipstick tube on here, if there is any sludge buildup on there, you can go ahead and drain that out. So we recommend, just checking it periodically, but definitely draining it at least every 5,000 miles. So we're gonna go ahead, and this is the last part of the install. We're going to go ahead and push this up into the catch can, and we're going to route it down to the bottom where it's hanging out. This is a little bit tight to do it in there. It does come with a couple tie wraps, so you can tie wrap the things. You got to get kind of crafty of where you want to tie wrap it. There's no exact spot, but as long as the one thing I recommend is you keep it away from the belts and the pulleys over there. There is a small AC line that I recommend tie wrapping it to. But like I said, this is a pretty tight install to get this in there. Sometimes if you have a buddy helping you, he can push it up from the bottom. You can kind of route it in the correct way. And then once we're completed with this, we're going to drill a very tiny hole in the bottom of the plastic under tray. And that's where this is going to poke out. And then what we could actually do on the bottom of it, we could put another tie wrap there. So that way it kind of stays in place. So this is just a quick disconnect and quick push in. So I have the catch can already assembled and everything, bolts sitting in like that. And just make it easier for me to get in there, I'm just going to go ahead and take this, push it straight in. This is a push lock. Keep in mind that make sure this valve is in the closed position. This would be the open position, this would be the closed. So every time you do your oil change, you just have to sneak your hand on it. It is a tight fit, and go ahead and push that down. And if there is any waste in there, it will drain out. So once we have that position in there, then we can go ahead and put the catch can back in. And then our last step up top here will be to put the -10 black lines hook up to the can. So we're going to go ahead and put this in here. Just going to hand tighten this in case we have a little adjustment we want to do with the lines. And then we'll go ahead and take our long line that comes from our intake, which is the 90 degree, comes to a 45, and this is going to go to the outside of the can. We'll go ahead and hand tighten that on there, depending on, we can get a little adjustment out of there if we want to. I just like to leave everything loose to make sure it goes in exactly. Everything lays at rest how I'd like it to, and then I can go ahead and tighten everything up once I'm happy with the fitment. So got everything laying in there, got everything hand tight, looks good to me. So I'll go ahead and tighten down the catch can first from the 16 millimeter on the engine mount. Give that a tighten. Make sure you have clearance on the catch can from the headlight on this side, and you have clearance all around. That way it doesn't scratch it. And then you can go ahead and tighten your lines. Now, the only thing that is a little tight to get into is you have your clear drain line going down. It's nice to just put one tie wrap on it, so that way it doesn't get into the serpentine belt or anything like that. And then once we go to finalize at the bottom, we're just going to drill a small hole into the undercover of the car, and that way it can be drained without even having to move the underbelly of the car. All right, so now we have our catch can drain line. As you can see, we leave about an extra foot or so than you actually need because we're going to trim it. So we have it ran, like I said earlier, make sure you keep it away from the belt, especially the AC compressor over here. What I do is I put it on the other side of the coolant line, so that way there's no way it can get tied up in the belt or anything like that. So what we're going to do is, this is not exact science. It could be a little off where you're drilling the hole for that. But my recommendation is kind of put the cover up there to kind of see where the line falls, because you could have ran it over here or this side of the intercooler hose. So it looks like mine falls somewhere right around this channel. So I think I'm going to use, roughly about here to go ahead and drill. Now I'm actually going to be drilling with a unibit. Unibit looks like this. You can use a 3/8 drill bit. I just happen to find a unibit. So I'm going to drill it right about to the 3/8 mark and then run that hose through. So I went ahead and drilled a hole just like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and install this cover. So what I'll do is I'll run the line through it. And like I said, it is a little bit longer. And we send it a little bit longer so that way you can, trim it to your discretion exactly where you need it. So I'll go ahead and put these T25s in. And then what I'll do is I'll put one tie wrap on the bottom to secure it. And then I'll probably leave another couple inches or so, just so when if I ever need to take this cover off again, I can put it in. If you cut it too tight, then it's going to be really, really tight. So I would probably leave, I don't know, I'd say 3 inches hanging off. So that way when you're doing your next oil change, you don't even have to take this off. You could just drain your oil from here and put a can under here, go ahead and pop it, and saves you a lot of time. So I'll go ahead and throw these T25s back in now. All right, so once we have our catch can installed, we had our reservoir installed. Of course, this is a Golf R. Don't pay attention to this if it is a regular Mark 7 GTI. All of our lines are orientated in the direction. This isn't exact by all means. You can, if your particular car, you can kind of translate them however you want there. And just make sure that the lines are tucked nice and tidy over here. This line's tight, that line's tight. The only thing left to do is put on your engine cover if you want to reinstall it. If not, you can leave it off. But with this actually kit, you can reinstall it. The lines will sit on the side here, so this will plug back in. So that's it. Installation is complete. All thing left to do is to go ahead and fire the car up, let the car idle for a minute or so, just to make sure there's no leaks. You can kind of check around if you're hearing anything, if the car is idling weird, of course check it out. But if everything was installed correctly, you should have no particular issues. All right, guys, so that completes the installation of the V2 catch can on this 2017 Golf R. As you can see, the installation went pretty smooth. Everything fits really nice. It's nice because the factory engine cover even goes back on. So one thing I do recommend to check is every 1,000 miles, make sure you pull the dipstick just to see where the level is. If it starts getting about halfway, that means it's too full. It does need to be drained. It could if you do any sprinted track driving, but I typically recommend every 5,000 miles to drain it. It is pretty easy to drain. You stick your hand in there, you put the valve down to vertical, and you can actually put a a catch can or something underneath it, a bucket, to actually catch those deposits on there. So we also carry service kits on USPmotorsports.com that come with the oil filters and also liquid moly oil. So if there's any other thing else we can do for you, please leave a comment on the YouTube channel and I'll actually see if I can respond to it myself about any installation questions or anything further. And be sure to subscribe so you can watch some cool and fun videos of me doing installs on these cars. Thanks for watching.